So, you want to say something real quick? Something again? Which was almost instantaneous. Yeah, I didn't see that. That was also because our redneck tech was on the phone. Well, we were talking about getting some other stuff situated. Well, all right, everybody. We are here and we are live according to all other services. Just trying to get sound checks to make sure that everything is good to go. But other than that, let's chit chat. So, what we wanted to talk about today, and pardon our late arrival, I have been dealing with sick animals, so that's all fun and well. But we are going to be chit-chatting about some cards that Jones has picked up and kind of what the purpose of those are, along with a little bit more about the PvE system that we have been working on, because that's kind of been my life over the last 3 or 4 days, besides, getting some job stuff done so I can do some different work, besides just a couple other things. Anything to add, Jonesy? So, lots of money for you. So. Alright, sorry, I'm still getting sound checks because Discord is one of the few things that I've not been able to get consistently popping up sound for everybody, so I apologize to everybody that has jumped into videos and we haven't had sound for some people. But with that being said, what cards have you recently picked up to re-bolster your collection for your Magic decks? Because I know you were talking about that really recently before we dive into PvE. $10 cards? Oh. So that's $400 for 10 cards. What does that average out to? 10, $20 a card? Yeah. It's money. It's unfortunate. Valid. And completely understandable. So. Oh, the PvE's going really well, brother. We are actually here to talk about that a little bit today. Like I said, sorry for the late jump on. We normally jump on 6 o'clock Texas time, 7 o'clock his time, and then 5 o'clock Utah time for the people that have been jumping in to help out with the PvE system. Oh, thank you. I don't know if you mean mine or his, but either way, thank you. The wife bought me mine. She knows I love axolotls. They're on my channel whenever I do any type of event. I love axolotls, and my wife is a huge Stitch fan, hence why we have a Stitch blanket. So we really, really appreciate you being in. But let's talk a little bit about PvE, and maybe you can jump in and give us your thoughts as well. So the PvE system that we are working on is meant to be a dungeon crawl type of system, is how we've kind of built it in our minds. And it's meant to be a blast. It's meant to be I want to say really competitive in the sense that you are playing the environment, but friendly in the sense that you have to work with your teammates. Would you say that's about right, Jones? Right, right. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I guess you could say similar to that, but a little bit different because you still have to play your hero. Like your hero, your deck as a player in this game functions the exact same as every other game. You literally put your equipment on, except besides you being the only person on your team, you have two other people, which means their decks now also can affect yours. So, for instance, if someone plays it, this round's on me, it's a huge card. This round on me affects all players. Now, it says heroes on this round's on me, which is a huge thing because in the PvE format that we're building, it says all opponents or all. We have a card. So we'll let you in on one of the cards. There's a card called Barmaid's Kiss because we're working with the tavern theme first. In the tavern theme, there's a card called Barmaid's Kiss. And if it is played by someone that is not a barmaid, it heals 3 life to the person that plays it. If a barmaid plays it, it heals every single person on the board for 3 life. And we have some really fun text boxes to go with it. We'll let those be on the cards when we basically put the system out for everyone to kind of play test and get back to. And this is really going to be a community thing to get off the ground all the way because we can't play test this enough to make sure that everything is balanced and level. And as the community plays this and gets big on it, we want the community to give us feedback on how things can improve, where things are meant to be, and also know that the bar tavern theme is kind of its own unique scenario inside the PvE world, although all PvE systems will function very similar to this one. This is just kind of the, how would you say it, getting off the ground, Jones, or the launching, or... Yeah, of how that is. And I know Jones has thrown some cards into the pool that I've had to make and go get artwork for and everything else. We've been doing a lot of stuff just trying to make it really more feel like it's not something that's rushed together, but something that is put well together in a hasty amount of time. And I want to say this isn't rushed because I've wanted to do something like this for a long time, and Jones knows that. And I'm not great with names. Eric challenged me. Yeah, challenged me to build the system because I already kind of gave him ideas what I thought it would run while. He's like, well, you have a great foundation. Just build it for me and let's see if it'll work. So we are in a hardcore push for that. I know Jones, were you the one that wanted the tavern theme first, or was that more Eric? My fault. Thank you. You just gave me the next set of cards that I was trying to figure out how to work. Here's how they're going to work for everybody that's involved and wants a kind of sneak peek. So I've been working with systems that don't just affect you guys and making you discard, because that's kind of the main thing that like a PvE system would do, is make you discard your stuff or affect your intellect in some way or affect how many cards you can play in a single round. But because Jones said that, what I think I'll do is on the drunken tokens, which I'm going to create, there's a drunken state token that you can be earned, that if you are hit, you must discard a card from your hand and draw a card from one of your allies' decks. You may play that card as if you are the correct class, well, because you're drunk. So it's meant to be a really fun system. Could you imagine being a bard playing Pulverize? uh. Yeah, pretty much. So we've really been working on the system and getting it to function and having its own unique abilities. The Tavern Brawl system is one of the most unique inside the PvE system that we're going to create because I want it to be in the essence of a tavern type theme where if you lose the scenario and you're playing this as kind of like a playthrough run event, you don't die. Because you wouldn't die in a bar tavern fight most times unless you're being assassinated. You would get knocked out, which means you could lose equipment, you could lose specialization cards, things like that, that your PvE controller at a personal play table, once this is all the ground off all the way, could kind of give you a little hindrance while still not making you lose the game. You just get perks if you win each scenario. The whole overall theme of this is we eventually have enough sets so that you could literally lay out a whole end goal and fight whatever big bosses we make for every scenario. Whether that's forest bosses, tavern bosses, whatever else, you could do a whole bunch of different really fun stuff. They're literally meant to, as we expand on the sets too, depending on how long Flesh and Blood actually takes to come out with their own PvE system, that this could actually be a lot of fun to sit down and play with your friends and run through a set of like 8, 9, 10 scenarios in the course of, a few hours, depending on how fast you can get through them, that are just a laughing bunch of fun. So well, and that's also something that I was thinking about the system. If someone wanted to start from basically, let's say level 1, right? You have common equipment and common cards in your deck. And as you beat scenarios or fail scenarios, there are penalties imposed upon you or rewards given. Those rewards being you may add a certain number of Majestics to your deck, or you may take another piece of equipment of a certain status, rare, so on and so forth. And depending on how you do this, you could literally make it almost feel like it is a beginning dungeon crawl level 1 and slowly upgrading your abilities, your specializations, your equipment, and all of that to get to the big bad boss to fight him on max tier. No, I would leave the rarity symbol be the pre-made equipment. So you can use whatever equipment you want, but if you're playing in a level 1 tier, you can only use common equipment. If you're playing in a tier 2, you could only use common or rare equipment. I would never stop someone from using something that's common, because if someone wants to fight a legendary boss with common equipment, more power to you. Just luckily, you probably are going to get your face stomped in, as me and you have found out in Baldur's Gate a few times when we've tried to fight things we couldn't kill. Save and reload. Save, reload, save, reload. Um, yeah. So I think that eventually, like, there'd be considered 4 tiers in the game. 4 tiers. Being legendary being the highest tier, majestic being the second, so on and so forth. And there may be even middle tiers what's inside those tiers, like 3.5 in essence, that allows you to have a little bit of legendary equipment, or 3.75 that allows you to have 3 pieces of legendary equipment and 1 not. Like, you could do it however wanted. That's why I think it's so important that this system is community based and driven, because we're creating this from the ground up, which means the community can have a lot of say in it. Like, we want this to be something that the community has a huge say in, and that the community is excited to get this off the ground, and contribute to overall. So, like, cards ability, like if someone wants to even build like a troll card and give me all of the stats for it, and then I can go get artwork for it, or even heck, if you give me artwork for it and everything, we'll put it up and we'll put on the bottom of the card that it's for you. Metadecks. Metadecks will function in this system. Like, we're going to make it so that you can play your deck straight up without having to change anything, but we're also going to make it so that the decks can be scaled down for different power levels. So, for instance, let's say that me and Jones get this all the way off the ground. By the time I get out to go visit Jones in Utah for... what's it called? Summit. So let's assume we get enough sets off the ground that when we go out to Magic Summit, we can do this and we can have a really fun. And you want to bring 3 friends and play with meta decks, we'll have a scenario that we'll be able to completely play right off the bat for you. But if you're like, hey, I have a new friend, he just bought a starter deck, is there a way that he can jump in and I can either scale my stuff down or I can buy a starter deck and we can play? We want to be able to scale the deck down to play against just starter decks as a really good way to get new players into this. Like, I want a starter person who just bought a starter deck to be able to play against a scenario, same scenario you would play against, but with a couple people removed to make the scenario easier and more fair. And that's one reason I said it's going to be very community driven, because I'm going to need people to play test besides just us, because we can't play test how everything's going to be. Because every scenario is going to be unique in and of itself with how it affects the decks, how it affects you as players, how they affect each other. For instance, troll cards that I've been looking at, on the card will say every turn they regenerate 5 hit points. And if they are maxed, they continue to regenerate 5 hit points. Like, every turn they gain 5 hit points. That's it. Now, I don't know if those will be the bosses or the first people you fight, depending on how the scenarios lay out or depending on how someone stacks something up. I also said that the tavern system will be one of the most unique systems in and of itself because of how we want the tavern system to function in and of itself. It's kind of going to be our showpiece. The tavern theme will be our showpiece for the PvE system. The rest of the systems will be built on a dumbed down version of the tavern system, but a still really unique feel in essence. Would you say that's correct, Jones? I know you haven't got to play test as much because I'm the one doing everything on this end, but right. So we have to build a lot of stuff from the ground up, which means I had to find a border system that we could use that wasn't copyrighted by any means, and then take that system and run with that and do a lot of stuff from the ground up. I changed all of the symbols on the card so that they don't take from the Flesh and Blood symbols, but basically it's the same generic stuff that you guys know and love. It's also the same colors, so blue is intellect, green is health. Those just simple type of things that we had to change. Took a little more time, and we decided as a group that was, Jones and Eric included, that it was the smarter route to go about, just because if this takes off to the degree that we believe it will, we're gonna need something that kind of makes it unique and ours rather than everybody else's. Now, eventually, I want to design a better border system, but I'm not an artist per se, so I don't have the ability to really do that. One of my friends has been helping me out do a lot of that stuff and make it so that we could do things without being hindered. So, that being said, I'm trying to get tavern system. I'm trying to get it at least running enough so that by the end of this month and the beginning of next month, that can at least be play tested. I know it will not be anywhere near finished or near the point where a lot of people would like it to be, but a system like this, really, without a lot of play testing, we can't see where the problems are. And as anyone know that plays card games, it's really easy to find holes inside theories. And the best way I can say this is there was a PvE system that existed that people very easily found ways to maneuver the system to be able to beat the system constantly. We're trying to stop that from happening. Go ahead. Yeah. Which makes it really broken when you're like, I'll just hold my hand for 3 turns, and you guys just keep giving me, playing this rounds on me and coax commotions and let my hand get up to 9 cards. And then because I have 9 cards, I'm going to get to draw cards and do all this other stuff and have infinite, stuff. Yeah. So we're trying to make sure that, you don't get the ability to do some of those things. Yeah, you could plan for some of that stuff, but it may not work out the way you want to, because there's a lot of cards that will exist throughout all of the decks that allow someone to just go, yeah, I'm the controller, which is another thing. We have to have a controller so that the person who is controlling the, in essence, arch enemy, being the arch enemy, the PvE controller, has the ability, the GM, that's what I call them, the DM, the GM, has the ability to go, you're discarding cards, you're discarding cards, you're discarding cards, so that you can't do those type of things. Now, within reason, the DMs, once again, just like in D&D, will have a set of rules that they will know that you do not get to know, aka hidden rules. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, then how do we know that the person on the other side is not cheating? That's another thing that's going to be really hard to do. Basic rules, we're going to put out a rule sheet on how most DMs have to function and how the person who's playing the PvE boss needs to kind of stay within those rules. But there will be a set of hidden rules that we are not going to announce to the public just quite yet. As we get feedback, they'll kind of build on themselves. That will be truly hidden rules that are DM hidden rules that only a select people will get to know, as they are trusted not to leak these rules out. And the reason being is because it's meant to feel like a D&D scenario. Like, why did you just do that? Why did you just roll dice for no reason type of thing? And don't worry about it type of scenario. I don't know how many times I did that to you, Jones. Yep. Right. Right. So, as a general reference of what a hidden rule would look like, inside the tavern deck, this will be a rule that we will kind of base things off of, but is not going to necessarily be a guarantee. There's a bard, an acrobat, and a performer, which we have put in the Tavern Brawl system, that if a bard, performer, and acrobat are on the field at the same time, a unique scenario is born. Unique scenario affects all people inside the tavern in some way. Some benefits are positive and some benefits are negative. So, also to make sure that we don't have to have a huge, massive deck for any one system, there is no graveyard for the PvE controller. All of his cards at the end of the turn are shuffled, including his pitch zone, and put back to the bottom of the deck, which means we, in essence, have an endless deck. And that's meant to be on purpose. That's meant to be on purpose. And the reason for that is so that you can't try to deck me out. Yep. Right. Well, and that's also meant with the forest system. There's always something new to fight. So the deck it has to have a bottomless pit to draw from. And because of that, there is no way to deck out a PvE controller. The PvE controller has what we would basically consider an endless deck. They are allowed to banish cards from them, which means you could try to banish cards out of their deck. But if you banish all cards in their deck and they have nothing, the banish zone is then shuffled and put back into the deck. So you could just limit them on what they have for a temporary time. Mm-hmm. Oh no, we that's another thing. It's like that's something else why I said the hidden rules of the game are not going to be announced to everyone because we want them to stay hidden. We don't want them to be able to figure it out, which also means that there's a secondary rule which trumps the first rule, which means a PvE controller doesn't have to pin a unique scenario just because it came up. An instance, a dragon in a lair doesn't have to use a lair action just because it's in its lair. It can choose when to activate a lair action. So we can also dumb down a scenario by not triggering a special action, which is up to the controller. If it's becoming too easy, yeah, we're going to trigger the unique scenario. If we're been just thrashing you, we may not trigger the scenario. It's going to kind of be left up to a DM discretion. We want this to be difficult. We don't want this to be impossible. We want the win rate to be about 50% of the time. But that 50% of the time comes in from the random draws that a DM gets and the random draws that, in essence, the deck gets. So in the Tavern Brawl systems, all brawlers are shuffled into the Tavern Brawl deck and drawn off the top of the deck and put onto the deck. And you have to defeat all brawlers before the system ends. Now, in other systems like the Forest, there will be scenario bosses. And what will happen is, in essence, for those systems, is you will basically pull a random, they'll be labeled out of sight so that you don't know what's what, and you'll pull a number 1 through whatever those scenarios are, and they'll randomly hit the field. So you could have the toughest fight of your first at the beginning where 3 trolls hit the battlefield and you're like, crap. Which is also good because that means you have all of your resources, rather than the trolls hitting the field at the end when your resources are almost depleted. Or lowest. But also to make sure that it's not broken and that a controller like me can't just focus one person, and this is one of the rules that I'm implementing in the hard rules, is once a PvE controller attacks someone with a minion on board state, he cannot attack the same person again until another minion has attacked. So he still has to plan out his attacks. Now, he may go big attack, little attack, big attack, but he still cannot go big attack, little attack, big attack, little attack, big attack, or how many ever people there are on the board to one person. He kind of has to dish it out a little more evenly across the board state. And that's even more dealt with in the Tavern Brawl system of literally you have to attack in the Tavern Brawl system, it is you have to attack a different person every single time until basically you're equaling the damage across the entire board, because in a Tavern Brawl system, not everyone's going to jump on the same guy. It's just not that way it's going to work. You might have 2 people tag one person, but you're not going to have all of the people tagging just one person. They're all going to be basically sparring up with one person or the other. So, but in the other scenarios, there is going to be limits to kind of stop some of that. Well, and we haven't even dived into the half of it. This is the easiest system that we're making to start off, where I'm eventually going to add in special effects for the players, which means if you're playing an element deck in the correct element, let's say a forest, you're in a forest scenario playing an element deck, you may have some creatures that are immune to elemental attacks, which means if your attack says earth on it, we don't take damage. But if they are not immune to earth, then you take double damage. So there's other ways that I want to reward people for playing the right decks in the right scenarios. But you also have to be worried because, yeah, if I go up against a troll and he has earth immunity, it means all of my deck is now useless. So you kind of got to balance things. So for every time he gets to do double damage, there's a creature that he's going to do no damage to. So it kind of balances things out. Same with fire scenarios, ice scenarios, lightning scenarios. Like, I want to make it so that decks are benefited. And there may even be a Tavern Brawl that basically allows, warriors to get a little bit of a buff or anything like that. So I want to make it feel like, or there may be a city thing called Defend the Keep. You know what I mean? Where all guardians get bumped. All guardian block powers are doubled. And may block for anyone on the battlefield. You know what I mean? Like, they automatically get to block for anybody. Why? Because I'm going to be swinging like a truck. and your guardians are going to be going, I'm not attacking! Block, 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 block! For everybody on the field. I do. Right, and that's what I want to get to the point where people are getting custom cards that are printed by us and someone else with artworks and stuff that are given out to basically people who beat the scenarios and everything else. But like I said, this is a community-based driven game. We really want people to jump in and help out and give suggestions and tell us where the flaws are, and we want it to take off in the correct way. Which means if they're like, hey, the Tavern Brawl system's too strong because of this, we want to know that, and we want to try to tailor it down accordingly while also still making it difficult. But if they're like, hey, I'm blowing through this, this is nothing for us, we can kill it every single time, then I need to up health of everyone in the Tavern Brawl. Or I need to up health. Like, I need to know where the problems lie, and that's one of the reasons that I'll even say when I do this, give all of this away for people to play is, hey, if it's too weak, up the intellect. Hey, if it's too weak, up the health. If it's still too weak, up the health and intellect. Add your own unique ability on the card. See how it plays with that. And basically, if someone's like, hey, we upped the health of these people to this, and it really started making it difficult to win on a constant basis, and it became fun, then I know also how to proceed going forward when we start doing the other scenarios too, with going, okay, well, the other scenarios don't have as many people on the board state, so each troll that's on the board state is going to start with 28 health. And there's only going to be 2 trolls that enter the board state. And these 2 trolls gain 5 life every turn. So because of that, now you're like, this is problematic. So... also, if you do fire damage, the heal, that's another thing that I'll put on the card of the troll. If you do fire damage, the trolls don't get to heal. So if you're playing someone who can deal fire damage, the trolls don't heal anymore, which makes it an easier scenario and rewarding to someone that's playing a Dromai or a Fi or someone that can do some type of fire element on the card. So there's rewards to people playing other things, and that's what we want to do, because eventually when the system gets as big as you're hinting at, Jones, where it gets that big, we want to reward all players across the board. I'd love to fly all over the U.S. and fly even out to Australia, where the game is. Yeah, is it Australia? I can never remember where the game is based. Australia or New Zealand. There it is. Thank you. Fly out to one of the major New Zealand events and sit down and play PvE with them and like really get them to see what they think of it, or even people to be playing it over there and them to be like, "Can you come out to New Zealand?" Yeah. Yeah. That's really what I'm looking forward to, because there has yet to been a PvE system that has been created that people haven't been able to break, and I suspect that people will break our system too, but because it's community driven, I want to know where the breaks are so that we can adjust accordingly and seal up those cracks to make them somewhat still cracks that you can exploit, but not so much that it's broken. Like, I want someone to be like, oh, I know that I can walk in with this deck and do well, but we're like, okay, cool, this is a 3-round scenario you have to beat all around. So yes, you have a deck to beat the first one, but can you beat the other 2? So, and if you beat all 3, we give you a reward. Right, which will be fun. So, we've been at this for, I want to say, like 30-40 minutes. I can check on my phone, but I'll check in a little bit. I really hope that people do dive into this and expect the PvE system, because it's something that we're getting really passionate about and enjoying. Yeah. Well, it's really interesting to too because, and this is a side note, as well, Jones, is they announced PVE basically back in Monarch, I want to say, or closer to Monarch at Tales of Aria, where it was announced. Then I got really excited for it, and a lot of people did. And it feels like it's been almost 2 years now since it's been announced. And we still haven't seen anything or any other hints to it, and there's been other hints to it. So it'd be really interesting to see how our PVE pairs up to theirs when it finally comes out, or if they're like, if ours is close enough that they're like, hey, maybe, maybe we can utilize some of the stuff that you guys have made and tailor it more officially to what they have or whatever else. So it'll be really interesting. It'll be really interesting to see this take off in the way that it's probably going to because of how popular the other PVE system is when it first came out. I know everybody tried it out. You broke up. Say that again. Uh, yeah, yeah. No, you're back. Yeah, I think the internet's going. Yeah, I think it's going only because of how much traffic's going on right now because it's popular. Well, all right. Well, with that being said, yeah, I figured that because you keep breaking up. But that's a good ending point. Let us know how you guys feel about it, guys. We'll catch you next week, and I'll see you later in the week for my normal Wednesday video if I can get it up. Like I said, it's been crazy because we've been taking care of cats. We love you guys. We appreciate everything that you do and have been here for us. And we'll see you next time. Catch you on the flip side.